Witness me, brother. What's happening, dudes? This is Trent Kanuga, and welcome to Trent's Game Room. Of course, as you know, I am a game developer, and I also like to play video games. I like to play them, I like to talk about them. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about Mad Max. I played this on the PS4, and I was in love with the movie Fury Road. And that was my film of the year that year, and that was 2015. I think the game came out about 3 or maybe 4 months after that, and I'm glad they spent the extra time. Usually, film tie-ins, and I call it a tie-in very loosely, uh, but usually film to game conversions just don't work. The last one that was particularly really good was GoldenEye back in the 1990s. I think it was 96 or 97. And I played the hell out of that one. In fact, I can't watch a James Bond movie without thinking about GoldenEye. The sweet memories, man, of just shooting all of my friends in these tiny little corridors. But anyways, let's talk about Mad Max. Mad Max, well, essentially, it captures the feeling of the film Fury Road. But it's a lot more about cars than anything else. So if you can imagine it, take the combat of Shadows of Mordor, which is also the same combat from the Batman Arkham Knight series, and pretty much there you got it. That's Mad Max. The driving reminds me a lot of a game called Flat Out, which is just off-road chaos, and I loved the driving. I'm so glad they nailed that. The towns, the vibe, the settings, everything about Mad Max screams like hardcore heavy metal post-apocalyptic mayhem. And to be quite honest, it's a joy, man. It really did deliver that feeling. And what I wanted from a Mad Max game was the feeling of Fury Road. I wanted to like cruise around, just taking out war boys in their huge cavalries, blasting shotgun blasts to blow up the fuel the fuel containers on the back of their cars, and just watching the shrapnel fly. Unfortunately, the game I played right before this was Just Cause, and Just Cause, the same developer, Avalanche Studios. It might have been a different team, of course, but same. I think they shared a lot of the same tech. The thing that I felt that was the reason why I say it was unfortunate is because Just Cause gives you this tremendous mobility. You can just jut into a wingsuit kind of a thing from a parachute, and you got incredible traversal ability in Just Cause. And then going to Mad Max, it felt more confined, it felt more constrained. But that said, Just Cause, I never wanted to drive around. Mad Max, it's all I wanted to do, baby. Driving around in the Magnum Opus, tuning up your ride, adding on all kinds of defensive capabilities, and then just like going into these little hovels and converted ships that have been turned into towns and turned into camps. It's gnarly, man. One of the coolest features of this game is the massive exploration. The world is huge. And by huge, I mean like one of the biggest game worlds I've ever seen. Zooming out on the map, I was like, there's no way I'll get to see everything in this whole game. I think ultimately I spent about a 40 or 50 hours playing, and there was still a ton of things that I could have done. I didn't even do all of the challenges. Everywhere you go, there are races that you can do. There are mini challenges. There are all kinds of ways that you can upgrade the character max, and there are all kinds of ways that you can upgrade the Magnum Opus. I think I had just gotten my V8, and right towards the end of the game, and then I was like, I got to move on, man. I can't be coming back, keep coming back to this world. And that is one thing. There's one thing I want to mention here. It's kind of depressing. It's got that kind of like how you can't play too much Dark Souls because you get a little bit like it's dismal. It's a dismal world. Do you know what I'm saying? The world of Mad Max is dismal. There ain't a lot of like happy situations that occur. Pretty much, if something can go bad, it goes bad, and before you know it, you're eating maggots and sucking water out of a dirty, greasy, rusted pan again. And For some folks, that's relatable. That's relatable. That's everyday life as usual. But I guess, and I wouldn't want it to be a happy world. In fact, this is definitely one that, like, if you only bought, a couple of open world games this year, because maybe you don't have a lot of time, I would put Mad Max in there, but only if you like the aesthetic and only if you like off-roading kind of car games. This isn't like for those Gran Turismo type of fanatics. Uh, this is, yeah, you tune up your car, but it's not so precise that you're like choosing between real world hydraulics or anything like that. I mean, I literally drove the Magnum Opus off of, I think, 60-foot cliffs. And Chum Bucket, who's your sort of your he's your gunner on the back of your car. He'll scream out cool shit all the time, like glory and stuff like that. Or she's got wings. They refer to vehicles as archangels. And one of the cool things about this game is that it expands on the lore. And I love reading novels too, and I really hope that they release the novel for Mad Max, because there was a lot of talk about it, and they talked a little bit about things we don't see in the films, but they're implied through characters' interpretations of the world. And so, for instance, the generation that's living in the Mad Max world, they perceive cars as these almost angelic beings because the machines have somehow survived an apocalypse, and that's pretty mighty. That is like amazing stuff. So they revere them as if they are almost angels or living entities to be revered. There are really interesting names for things that are somewhat kind of direct and immature, which is the way that I think people would name things in a sort of a world where there are no libraries or books or educational systems anymore. It's just mankind brought down to its most raw form. And the game doesn't really capture much of that, but it does expand subtly on the lore of the Mad Max, the mythos, if you will. For those people who felt that the film Fury Road perhaps did not cover enough of Max's personal story, the game certainly does. There's a character named Griffa, and he's sort of your shaman. And it's strange how you meet him. You go out you find him in the locations of the world. He shows up on your map, and it says Griffa has appeared somewhere, and you can go to him and expand, like basically use skill points. And he gives you this little cutscene where he talks to you about, well, you must be missing something in your world, and like something like that. And it just kind of gives you a little bit more context for where Max is coming from, and what he's lost and how he's sort of slowly lost his mind a little bit. And really, the whole concept of Mad Max is about a man who's slowly falling into madness. The world around him no longer makes sense. He's lost everything that matters. And it's sort of about him trying to find a reason to fight, a reason to live, even though it's really just a world that's almost entirely purely about survival. And you could get really deep with it. But for the most part, it's a story of revenge. This is a story of revenge. And it's multiple layers of revenge, survival and revenge. From a developer standpoint, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more creativity with the other vehicles. Most of the vehicles are pretty much one-to-one based on the vehicles from the films. And the irony is that this is its own story. It's not intended to be, like you don't go and fight Immortan Joe. You fight some dude named Scrotus. And so it didn't have to be, War Boys. I mean, the War Boys are cool, but give us something fresh, man. Don't just do what we've seen in the film. Give us something fresh. In the film, I loved that they had these cars that were sort of hot rods, but they were hot rods stacked on top of hot rods, and they really pushed it. I think this would have been a tremendous opportunity to, push another kind of a faction, another culture. That said, I don't have a direct response as to what they could do, although it would be interesting to see what if there was a faction that actually was kind of holding their society together. Maybe they built something up in the mountains, or maybe it's something that there is actually a civilized culture that is building these towers or something. But then does that take away, does that distract from what Mad Max is at its core, which is a world in ruin where there is no hope left, you know? And I guess, you know, there are a lot of questions, a lot of conversations that could come from where this game could have gone. I just hope that it's something that they don't abandon. Maybe they'll do a Mad Max 2, Mad Max game number 2, whatever, another deuce. Anyways, so for the most part, guys, that about wraps it up for my thoughts and my feelings on Mad Max. I could probably talk a lot more about it. I didn't 100% the game. I finished the story and I went back and did a few of the races and upgraded my Magnum Opus and my V8 a little bit more. But for the most part, I didn't keep going with it the way that I have with some other games. I didn't get my platinum trophy or anything, but you know, I'm curious what you guys think of this game. I want to know in the comments section below. Feel free to drop in your 2 cents about what you thought of the art style, what you thought of the setting. Did it, you know, what did you think of the film? You know, and does this game do it justice? Does this game do the franchise justice? You know, do you like that it was open world, or would you have rather seen something that's a little bit more on rails with a more gripping, compelling story? You know, is it even possible to make a film to game conversion better than Mad Max? I don't think it is. I think this is just about as good as that gets. Until we get VR, we got Mad Max. Anyway, that's it for me, dudes. I'm signing off. As usual, I'm gonna catch y'all mañana. Bond.